Well, good morning. Thank you for being here with us this morning for this announcement. My name is Roger Handberg. As the United States Attorney for the Middle District of Florida, I have the privilege of serving as the Chief Federal Law Enforcement Officer for 35 counties in Florida. Since taking office almost 3 years ago, I prioritize working with our law enforcement partners to aggressively investigate and federally prosecute traffickers of illegal drugs and perpetrators of violent crime and money laundering. And so it's with particular pride that I'm here today to discuss the collaborative efforts of local and federal law enforcement agencies, as well as my office, to successfully bring down and federally prosecute a major drug trafficking organization that operated in this community with devastating results. Here with me today are representatives of my law enforcement partners. And going from your left to my right, we have Grant Gabriel, who's a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We have Jacksonville Sheriff's Office Lieutenant Ricky Valentine. We have Sheriff Rob Hardwick with the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. We have Ron Locker, who's the special agent in charge with IRS Criminal Investigations. We have Special Agent in charge Kirk Howard with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. We have Assistant Special Agent in charge Tim Hemker with Homeland Security Investigations. We have Lieutenant Stephen Molina with the Clay County Sheriff's Office. We have Captain Aaron Stevens with the Florida Highway Patrol. And last but not least, we have Team Leader Keith Hannon with the United States Postal Inspectors. I'm proud to be here today with all of these law enforcement partners to thank them and to commend them on a significant case that's being prosecuted here in this building in Jacksonville Federal Court. Let me take you back to October 17th of 2023. On that date, the news reported about a drive-by shooting that occurred on Interstate 95 in St. Johns County. As part of its efforts to identify the perpetrators, the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office released a video from a dash camera of a semi-truck that was on the highway at that time. The video showed a white Mercedes being driven in the left southbound lane as another car pulled alongside it with 4 masked men. The masked men fired shots into the Mercedes, exploding the back window and injuring both people inside. At the time that this drive-by shooting was first reported, no suspects were able to be identified. It has been 10 months since that drive-by shooting, and we have never forgotten about the terrible crime that was committed that day, and we have never forgotten about the victims of that crime. Law enforcement has continued to investigate that case and to follow up on each and every lead, and my office and our law enforcement partners have remained committed to seeking to do justice and to hold accountable those who were involved. I'm here today to announce a major development in that case. Last week, a federal grand jury sitting here in Jacksonville, Florida, returned a federal indictment charging Nathaniel Thomas Hatcher III and James Toney for their role in that drive-by shooting. This indictment is due to some incredible work by these law enforcement agencies. It is an example of how following the evidence in an investigation can lead to solving other crimes. Let me start from the beginning. The investigation that led to the charges in the October 2023 drive-by shooting, well, it started as a drug trafficking and money laundering investigation. The focus of the investigation was a drug trafficking organization led by Hatcher that was suspected of transporting large quantities of marijuana, distributing it into this community, and laundering the proceeds. But it quickly became apparent that drug distribution and money laundering were not the only crimes that needed to be investigated. A review of bank statements associated with members of the drug trafficking organization resulted in the identification of large amounts of firearm purchases at federally licensed firearms dealers in Northeast Florida. Further investigation revealed a pattern of straw purchases and trafficking of firearms. A straw purchase is when someone purchases a firearm for someone else who is prohibited from law from possessing one, or for someone who does not want their name associated with the transaction. Straw purchases are a federal crime. In this investigation, investigators found several times when an individual by the name of Desmond Lee Maxwell made straw purchases for firearms for Hatcher. These purchases were made on 3 separate occasions at 2 different firearms dealers for a total of 5 firearms. The pattern was similar for each transaction. Maxwell purchased the firearms, certifying that he was the actual buyer of it. That was a lie. Each firearm was paid for by Hatcher, and a review of text messages between them showed that Maxwell was purchasing the firearms for Hatcher and delivering them to him. In January 2024, Maxwell attempted to straw purchase an additional 2 firearms for Hatcher. His purchase was denied by the National Criminal Background Check System. The next month, in February 2024, Hatcher and Maxwell were federally arrested for their conspiracy to make straw purchases of firearms. Both of them were charged in federal court. Maxwell has pleaded guilty. In his plea agreement, Maxwell has admitted his participation in the conspiracy, and he admitted that he knew and had reason to believe that the firearms he was straw purchasing for Hatcher were being used to protect drug stash houses and dealers during drug sales. This is nothing new. Drug trafficking and violence go hand in hand. Drug traffickers regularly use firearms and violence to protect themselves and their drugs, and that was the case here. Maxwell was an active participant in Hatcher's drug trafficking organization. He traveled on commercial flights to transport cash and marijuana, and he collected proceeds that were owed to Hatcher's drug trafficking organization. So when he conspired with Hatcher to straw purchase firearms, Maxwell did so with knowledge and reason to believe that Hatcher would be using those very same firearms in furtherance of a drug trafficking conspiracy. For his role in the straw purchases, Hatcher was federally indicted. He was charged in a federal indictment with 5 counts, including conspiracy to make straw purchases of firearms and aiding and abetting in the making of false statements in connection with firearm purchases. But the investigators, they weren't done with this case yet. They continued their work on this investigation, leaving no stone unturned, following up on each and every lead. And where the evidence took them next was to Hatcher's girlfriend, Yaquasia Del Carmen, who was the next defendant to be federally charged. With Hatcher in jail pending trial, he turned to Del Carmen to take over a leadership role in the drug trafficking organization. This was nothing new for Del Carmen. For over a year, Del Carmen had been an active participant in the organization by transporting marijuana on commercial flights from California to Jacksonville and by supervising the collection and laundering of drug proceeds. Hatcher also enlisted Del Carmen's assistance in attempting to obstruct that investigation that was being built and was continuing to be built by the investigators against him. While sitting in jail pending trial, Hatcher directed Del Carmen to post a message on social media to intimidate a witness and others from cooperating against him. We take those type of threats seriously, and we act quickly on them. Shortly after the post was discovered, Carmen was arrested in April of this year, and she was charged in a federal criminal complaint with conspiring to possess and with intent to distribute marijuana and conspiracy to intimidate witnesses. Hatcher also was charged with drug trafficking and witness intimidation violations as well in a superseding indictment that was returned in May of this year. A month later, in June, Del Carmen signed a plea agreement and pleaded guilty, acknowledging her role in the drug trafficking and money laundering conspiracy and her involvement in the effort to intimidate a witness and others from cooperating against Hatcher. But the investigators were not done with their work. A month later, in July, a federal grand jury returned another superseding indictment against Hatcher, the third indictment against him. This time, the indictment added 2 members of his drug trafficking conspiracy, James Tomey and Aldonta Easterling. As alleged in that indictment and as summarized in other court records, those defendants and other conspirators are alleged to have been part of a major drug trafficking organization that operated in Jacksonville for over a year and a half. Members were directed to fly drugs in from California, usually Sacramento, to here in Jacksonville. Once in Jacksonville, the organization rented residences in short-term rentals, and that's where they used as drug stash houses from which they distributed drugs. And the drugs they distributed, they did in large quantities. To further their drug trafficking, the violent members of this organization carried firearms, including firearms that had been purchased by Maxwell as part of his straw purchases. Let me summarize for you what these agencies were able to accomplish in the span of just 5 months from February to July of this year. In that time period, Hatcher was charged in 3 federal indictments, with a 3rd indictment adding 2 conspirators. During that same time period, the straw purchaser for Hatcher's drug trafficking organization and his girlfriend were federally charged, and both of them have pleaded guilty. But the investigative agencies were still not done with their work on this case. They continue to follow up on each and every lead. And that led us to last week. Last week, the excellent work of these law enforcement agencies led to a 4th federal indictment against Hatcher. In this most recent superseding indictment, Hatcher and Tony have been charged for their role in the October 17, 2023 drive-by shooting. This federal indictment is the direct result of countless hours that the investigators have poured into this case, securing warrants, interviewing witnesses, surveilling and arresting defendants, and taking drugs and firearms off the street. It was that meticulous police work that developed the evidence that led to the charges in the drive-by shooting. There was not just one piece of evidence that made those charges possible. Rather, it was the entirety of the investigation that has been conducted and the evidence that has been developed that led to the new charges being added about the drive-by shooting. The federal charges that Hatcher, Tony, and Easterling are facing are serious charges. Hatcher faces a minimum mandatory of 20 years up to life in federal prison. Tony faces a minimum mandatory of 15 years up to life in federal prison, and Easterling faces a minimum mandatory of 10 years in federal prison up to life. All 3 of these defendants have been arrested and they're being held in custody pending trial. And it's important to stress that the allegations asserted in the indictments and that I've summarized here today, well, they're just that, they're allegations, and Hatcher, Tony, and Easterling are presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty. I cannot say enough good things about the incredible work of these law enforcement agencies you see before you. Their outstanding work was done as part of an organized crime drug enforcement task force investigation, or what we sometimes call an OCDF case. In an OCDF case, investigators and federal prosecutors work together to identify, disrupt, and dismantle the highest level criminal organizations that threaten the United States using a prosecutor-led, intelligence-driven, multi-agency approach. These cases require meticulous work by excellent investigators to put together the evidence that will support prosecutions to combat organized crime and reduce the availability of illicit drugs in the United States. The investigative agencies that work on these cases, well, they must be of the highest caliber, and they must have the resources, expertise, and commitment to conduct the type of long-term enterprise investigations that are needed to disrupt drug trafficking organizations and dismantle them. And that is what we have with the agencies who have worked on this operation. This case is a great example of how local and federal investigators are able to effectively work together to protect our community by disrupting a major drug trafficking organization. So far, the investigators on this case have seized 9 firearms, including a machine gun. They also have seized 107 kilograms of marijuana, 78 grams of MDMA, 28 grams of fentanyl, and 19 grams of methamphetamine, and they have secured federal charges against 6 defendants. And their work is not over yet. Let this be a message to anyone who conspires to traffic in firearms or illegal drugs, or to commit violent crimes or money laundering in this community. As you can see from the law enforcement agencies here today, you will be investigated. And if you send drugs into this community or seek to commit acts of violence or money laundering, our agents and investigators will use every lawful tool to hold you accountable, no matter where you operate from. And if you have violated federal law, the United States Attorney's Office will seek to prosecute you in federal court. We are united together in our mission to keep this community safe. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the Assistant Special Agent in charge with Homeland Security Investigations.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tim Hemker. I currently serve as the Assistant Special Agent in charge for Homeland Security Investigations here in Jacksonville. I want to start by thanking U.S. Attorney Roger Handberg, as well as Sheriff Hardwick, and the rest of our federal, state, and local partners who are all with us here today for all your collaboration on this investigation. HSI is proud to be a member of the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force and conduct this investigation with our partners behind us. This case serves as a prime example of OCDETF's mantra, "We are stronger in partnership." It demonstrates that when law enforcement agencies join forces, we can effectively pursue some of the most complex crimes, and the seamless cooperation between our agencies was key to bringing these individuals to justice. HSI investigates crime on a global scale to prevent harm locally. Our ability to conduct complex investigations utilizing our broad legal authorities represents one of the Department of Homeland Security's best weapons for dismantling transnational criminal organizations. Through innovation, hard work, and determination, we work with federal, state, and local partners to combat crime and keep our communities safe. These partnerships are key to accomplishing our shared goal of protecting the communities that we serve. HSI's public service mission began in 1789 with the legacy U.S. Customs Service. Today, our public service mission continues through investigations on a global scale, with the focus of protecting our nation and preventing harm locally. We remain committed to this mission and our collaboration with our partners. Together, we will continue to pursue those that seek to do harm in our communities. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kirk Howard. I'm the Special Agent in charge for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms in the Tampa Field Division. I'm proud to join U.S. Attorney Handberg and the other law enforcement officials here today with us. ATF is proud to be the co-lead in this investigation, a case that falls squarely into my agency's public safety mission. ATF helps identify, investigate, and arrest the most violent criminals, the trigger pullers, and those who arm them, to put them behind bars. Our Jacksonville field office began this investigation in the fall of 2023 and immediately focused on two defendants named here today, Nathaniel Hatcher III and the group's leader and strategic planner, Desmond Lee Maxwell. I won't reveal the operational details of the case because it's still active, but I'd like to share a little about crime gun intelligence tools that we utilize in this investigation. Our ballistic analysis technology, NIBIN, or the National Integrated Ballistics Information Network program, helped generate investigative leads by digitally analyzing hundreds of spent discharge cartridge casings during this investigation to seemingly unrelated crimes to pinpoint Hatcher III and others as individuals responsible for the midday shooting on Interstate 95 in October of 2023. Our investigation revealed that Maxwell unlawfully acquired at least 10 firearms to contribute to Hatcher III's violent drug trafficking business. We also tapped into ATF's Emerging Threat Center, whose expertise supported the joint investigation in creative and technical ways. And the most powerful capability that we have in our ruthless determination are the men and women of our state, local, and federal partners behind me. We utilize the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office Real-Time Intelligence Center, the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office of Forensic Analysis Team, and the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office Major Crimes Unit, the HSI Border Enforcement Security Task Force, and of course, the most talented federal prosecutors here in Northeast Florida. It's too early to tell if the defendants named here today could face additional charges or if there's additional co-conspirators, but I can say this with the utmost confidence. If you utilize firearms or procure firearms for the unlawful use, we will investigate you. We will take the collaborative partners here today and ruthlessly identify you, investigate you, and prosecute to the full extent of the law. I'll turn it over to the IRS Special Agent in charge. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ron Lecker. I'm the Special Agent in charge, IRS Criminal Investigations, Tampa Field Office. The actions of the individuals in this indictment outline an all-too goal of criminals everywhere: greed. Make no mistake, at the heart of drug trafficking organizations worldwide, whether they are cartels in Mexico or traffickers in Florida's city streets, making and continuing to make money is the motive. As outlined in the indictment, these defendants attempted to clean their drug proceeds through a tangled web of transactions for use in carrying on the scheme. They attempted to hide the goal of the enterprise, the cash, by making cash deposits into business bank accounts and making numerous transfers through various financial institutions. But all financial transactions leave a trail. Despite their best efforts, IRS criminal investigators have a unique expertise to follow the trail and uncover the source of the funds. We are experts in following the money so that we can financially disrupt and dismantle major drug trafficking organizations. We are committed to taking the profit away from drug traffickers and putting those dangerous individuals behind bars. Through the outstanding investigative efforts of the agencies represented here today, IRS criminal investigation was able to prove the defendant's financial dealings were rooted in drug proceeds and not legitimate business transactions as depicted. We are proud of our partnership in this case, and I commend the team effort which brought these brutal criminals to justice. Thank you. Sheriff.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for having us here today, U.S. Attorney Handberg. On October 17th of 2023, St. Johns County Sheriff's Office received a call where almost 24 casings were recovered on Interstate 95 from a 7.62 AK-47 type round. The St. Johns County Sheriff's Office responded, and relentless work by the Major Crimes Unit under Captain Bill Worley, Lieutenant Jimenez, and Sergeant Gene Tolbert, our Real-Time Intelligence Center, and our crime scene investigators began this investigation where the vehicles basically disappeared. Without the information we received from a commercial vehicle, which is the original video we received, which actually had the information which led to the end of the termination of this investigation. But here's where it gets better. Here's where actually the gold standard is set in the state of Florida, in Northeast Florida. Our partnerships with the FBI, ATF, IRS, HSI, and under the leadership of our current U.S. Attorney, Roger Handberg, and our relationships we share with everybody else, our state and local partners, is these suspects, these violent criminals, were held accountable for their actions. We want to just say thank you for the partnerships that we share with you. I don't believe anybody does it better in the state of Florida, the United States of America, than we do here, together as a team, in one mission, one fight, in Northeast Florida. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, sir. So we're not going to detail all of that today. As I indicated, it was the entirety of the work that was done. And so, in this morning, we spent a couple moments, I spent a couple moments summarizing this case, and I do it in a couple minutes. And when I do that, I am summarizing hours and hours and hours of painstaking police work. Cases like this are often like a puzzle. We have different pieces of the puzzle we're trying to put together to get that picture, which we can then use to prove the case in court. And so it was a combination of all the different things, that I mentioned. And one of the things I've always admired about law enforcement, I can't echo enough what the sheriff said, is here in Northeast Florida, everyone works together, and they work together well for one goal of protecting the community and holding criminals accountable. And what I can commit is these investigators are going to continue to do this on this case and every other. Yes, sir.
You detailed hundreds of kilos of drugs. How much of a dent will that actually put in Jacksonville getting those drugs off the streets?
I think it's going to be a substantial impact in terms of reducing the availability of that supply of marijuana from California into this community. But I don't want to lose sight of the violence that this group was engaged in. And I think this is going to have a positive impact in terms of reducing the violence that this drug trafficking organization was doing. I mean, the fact that we have a gun battle on I-95 going southbound at some point by members of this drug trafficking organization shows the threat to public safety they possess. And so this case is a drug trafficking case, but I also consider it to be a very significant case in terms of fighting violent crime in this community and holding people accountable and protecting this community. Yes, sir.
I would like to ask you to, if you can, make the gun portion of this, the shooting on 95, a bit more tangible. There were people there who shot into this vehicle because why?
Well, what I can tell you is what we allege in the indictment, and more about this is going to come as the court proceedings proceed ahead, because as I indicated, there were 4 people in that car. We've charged 2 of them, and I hope I've communicated that we are continuing to follow up on each and every lead. So our work is not done, which is one reason why I'm not going to be in a position to give you some of the details. But it's alleged in the indictment. It was part of the drug trafficking conspiracy. You'll see that in there, alleged as in furtherance of count 6 of the 3rd superseding indictment, which is the drug trafficking conspiracy. So we believe, and have alleged, or a grand jury has alleged, that it was part of a drug trafficking conspiracy. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that these men were distributing these drugs out of short-term rentals in Jacksonville. Can you be more specific of what part of town in Jacksonville?
So there's some criminal complaints. There's a criminal complaint for Ms. Del Carmen, which has some of that information. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I do believe there's some addresses, and we can get you a copy of that criminal complaint. It's a public document. But there were a number of short-term rentals in the Northeast Florida area from which this was happening. And just think about it from the perspective of the person who's renting, that place, and the people who are the neighbors to that rental, not suspecting that the purpose it's being used for is to be used as a drug stash house. But we can get you some of those details in the criminal complaint.
Do you think it's concerning for those neighbors in that area who, it's not necessarily their decision that their neighbor is having an Airbnb and this is supposed to be a vacation home and now there's drugs being sold in that?
So we do this work because we're concerned about everyone in the community and who's potentially in harm's way. Think about it with the drive-by shooting that happened on I-95. There's other people on that road, and oftentimes when shots are being fired, all sorts of different terrible consequences can come about. So yes, we are very sympathetic to people in our community who are potentially in harm's way, not knowing they're in harm's way. And what I can tell you from having all of these agencies stand with me here today, we stand together every day together. We don't do it always in a press conference, but every day we stand together to try to find people who are engaged in violence in our community so that we can do what we need to do to protect our community from them. So, again, to echo what the sheriff said, the way law enforcement works here, it's collaborative, and it's with that in mind in terms of protecting the community the best way we know how. Yes, sir.
Just have a quick question. Do you have a name for the group, or did they have a name? And also the 2 occupants who were in the car who were shot, which they were injured. Can you give us some more information about what happened after the bullets flew, and are they facing arrest or not?
So with respect to the victims of the shooting, there were 2 of them in the car. One, I believe, was hit by glass because the window exploded. The other one was shot, and because of the excellent work of the sheriff's office, and they were on the scene immediately, they medevaced that person to get immediate treatment at a local hospital, and I understand that person had a full recovery. I don't usually learn their names. I'm not aware of them having a name because, our goal is to eliminate them from the memory of this community. Well, thank you very much for being here today. We appreciate it.